to happen.
Yeah, and let me bring our Republican guest in who has not been on before. So Tracy Wimbush, welcome to the show. You know, we had on the co-author of How Democracies Die earlier, who pointed out that Donald Trump has now ticked off all 4 of the markers of autocracy. Will, in his column this morning, writes about the head of a major police union with 13,000 members tweeting a threat, a sort of violent-sounding threat. We're declaring war on you, directed at the mayor of New York City. And this sort of normalization of violence, violent rhetoric. There was a neo-Nazi march right downtown Washington, and it didn't even make the news last week. You, as a Republican, how do you explain this in your party? How do you explain this in a party in which, I mean, you represent maybe like 3% of the party as an African American, but how do you explain this?
I represent all of the party as a Republican. I am here because we're Americans, and everything that you said about the president, authoritarianism, a thing about autocracy, none of that means anything because you're not understanding leadership. The president is the leader of the free world, and he has to make decisions. And we need to respect that. The journalists don't want to cover the truth. They don't want to cover the facts. They don't want to cover them. They never have. They've never told the truth and or the facts on President Trump. So when you're talking about law enforcement,
Tracy, hold on. Let's have a conversation because you said journalists don't want to cover the facts. That's just actually not true. That is journalists' job to cover the facts. That's number one.
But they don't.
Number two, no. Number two, if Donald Trump is the leader of the free world, why has he declared the European Union, which is comprised, and NATO, those countries which have been our allies since we became the leader of the free world after World War I and World War II, why has he declared those people to be our adversaries and befriended the Saudis, the North Koreans, the Russians, Turkey? Why is he saying our adversaries are our friends and the European Union and NATO are our adversaries? If he's the leader of the free world, why does he do that?
Because not all of your friends are truly your friends at that time, because even the enemy of my friend, even my enemy of my enemy is my friend. And we need to understand that. We also need to understand that you don't know everything, and he can't tell you everything that's going on. And in the moment, we need to let a person lead. But right now, we've never allowed that to happen with the presidency of President Trump, one. But with that said, when it comes to law enforcement, we need to understand that we need to take care of them because they take care of us. Everyone calls 911. And Mayor de Blasio has never been a friend of his law enforcement.
So what you're saying basically, hold on. So you're saying that Donald Trump needs to lead in secret because he knows more than we do, so we just need to trust that his leadership decisions are correct, that the mayor of New York City is an enemy of law enforcement, even though he's the constituency of New York, that's his constituency, he should not protect them, and that we should just go with whatever law enforcement wants to do and protect them, even when black people are dying who are unarmed and being shot, that we should ignore all of that because we should just trust. It sounds to me like an authoritarian follower.
Joy, if you want black people to quit dying in the street, then we need to teach African Americans how to get out of the situation that they're in and leave and understand.
It sounds like
this is not a talking point. This is not about a talking point. This is about education, information, and making sure that they have access to it.
You're not educating anybody by giving talking points. I've been hearing these same Republican talking points since like Reagan was in office. That's how old I am. Let's get Will in.
You don't give talking points. You guys give opinions and not
facts. Stop saying talking points. Will, you wrote about this threat from, you open your column with it. Can you just explain what you wrote about?
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, I think when you talk about rising authoritarianism in this country, I mean, part of that, there's a whole warped sense of justice right now. We've been talking a lot in the last week about Bill Barr and what he's doing for Trump's friends like Roger Stone. And I mean, that's extremely troublesome. But the flip side of this coin is, you know, if you're a poor person in this country, if you're underprivileged, if you're black or brown, there is a lot going on right now.
Let him finish.
There's a lot going on right now to make this more of a police state. You know, the police unions that supported Trump are feeling incredibly empowered. We have ICE this weekend going into neighborhoods in American cities nowhere near the border to basically terrorize immigrant communities. And that's the flip side. When we talk about justice in the Trump era, it's not just doing favors for Trump's friends and the rich and powerful, who, by the way, white-collar crime prosecution has disappeared in the Trump era, completely disappeared. It's down to near zero. So that's happening also. But this attitude of, police brutality is okay. The Justice Department is not going to enforce consent decrees with these communities, which have a history of police brutality by their police forces. This is classic authoritarianism.
Yeah. No, I think what we've discovered is the Republican Party is not a conservative party; it's an authoritarian party. And
no, the Republican Party is a part of America.
No, Jennifer's talking. Jennifer's time.
That when you see someone who invests all hope, all faith in an individual, without realizing that every player in our constitutional system has restraint, has limitations on power, then you've adopted the strong man of history theory. Donald Trump, we don't put blinding faith in the President of the United States. We don't allow any president to intervene in a specific case in order to punish people or to show lenience to people. We don't allow a president to lie. We don't allow a president to bully a prosecutor or bully a jury when the jury is out in the Manafort trial.
Have you ever read American history?
Indicative of an authoritarian society. In our system, the allegiance that we owe is to the Constitution and the restraints.
That's right.
You can favor the policies, but you have to have these individuals, whether it's the president, whether it's Congress, whether it's the Supreme Court, operating within a rule of law. And that is what has fundamentally changed, is that Trump is not doing that. And so long as you have people who are essentially cultists, idolaters, who are investing all hope, all faith, all protection in Donald Trump, we are on the road to authoritarianism.
And let me ask you this, a couple quick questions, Tracy. They have to be quick answers. Is Donald Trump sent by God? That's what he says.
All power is elevated by God.
So you think he's sent by God?
If he's in power, he was set there by God.
So basically, he's there. So God sent Donald Trump. So that means that we must.
I believe God allowed Donald Trump. I believe that Donald Trump is in office because God allowed him to be there to give America a reprieve so that they can reset and get back to normal.
I see. And Donald Trump has essentially said he is a king. Do you believe he is king?
I think we all are if you're in Christ Jesus.
Let me go to Aaron Haynes. Aaron.
Wow. It's fresh.
No, I like the honesty. Aaron, what I'm going to let you answer, then I also want to let Karine talk about what you're hearing out there. What fears are you hearing that the people that you're covering, the women you're talking to, have about this era?
Well, what I hear a lot from women is really about how, with kind of the absence of norms that this era has produced, the effect that is having on their interpersonal relationships, right? I mean, a thing that has become kind of normal is, we can't even talk to our friends, our family members, our neighbors about politics anymore because it's just so adversarial. It's so polarizing in a way that it just didn't used to be. But, I think, the absence of norms in this political climate should not mean the absence of norms in our journalism. I mean, if we're talking about balance, we really just have to cover all aspects of our democracy, and that's regardless of who is really in the White House. And that's a thing that I think that I hear a lot of women that I talk to asking, when are we going to return to that?
And last word to you, Karine.
We have a president who does not believe in the rule of law, who thinks the Constitution is way too complicated, who has really invigorated white supremacy, white nationalism, and he attacks people of color, women, with his cruel policies almost every day. Guess what that is? That is authoritarianism, right? That is a banana republic. And you have a party who is looking the other way. And as long as they're getting everything that they need from him, they do not care. So it's almost as if that co-equal branch of government that's supposed to hold him to account can't really function because that party has decided to look the other way. Yeah. This is our democracy that we're talking about. And when you were asking Aaron, and I'm going to tell you what we hear from people, they're worried, they're fearful, they're scared that we are losing our democracy, and so they want to, they want to fight back.
We're not a democracy. We're a republic. We're a representative republic.
You've made yourself very clear. Will Bunch, And Tracy Winbush, thank you very much. Aaron, Jennifer, and Karine are going to stay with me. I think this has been very